right, I'm here with Aaron Chase. Aaron is a mountain bike freestyle legend.
Thank you.
Aaron, it's really good to see you again, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. It was awesome riding with you when you came with me to Peru, and then linking up on this podcast. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this. You're one of the people I thought about as the podcast is about people that are what I call like outliers or high performers. And it honestly usually has a little bit of an entrepreneurial slant to it too. So I want to get into that because I have some specific things to ask you about your job as there's a million things we call it, social media influencer or bike rider or filmer or all the things that you do to show everybody how much fun you have every day.
Definitely. Let's get into it. Yeah, I've got many roles and many bosses, or maybe just many companies that I ride and work for. So I'm all over the place. There's a lot of juggling going on there, but with that, there's so many opportunities that come up with it, and I get to do some really fun stuff.
Yeah, you sure seem like you have fun. Let's talk a little bit about your background for people who listen to my podcast that might not be mountain bikers or into this scene. You are a sponsored rider. You have a lot of different sponsors, and you really spend your day doing tricks on mountain bikes. That's so simplistic, but let's talk about the background. How'd you get into riding bikes?
Yeah. So in fourth grade, my dad got me a mountain bike, and, I was instantly hooked, and we rode all over the place. He would do different races and triathlons and stuff like that. So he was always pretty competitive on bikes, but just in a different way. And anyway, it was something that we bonded over, and then my buddies, and then noticed I was good at it because I'd go to races and do really well. And there was a big series in New England called the Trail 66 series, which was
mountain bike racing, or were you into BMX at all first?
It's a slalom series. A dual slalom series. Yeah, I really did start out riding mountain bikes. It just was what I rode because I lived on a dirt road with a dirt driveway in Belmont, New Hampshire. And my dad built our house, and I'd ride bikes all over the place, and we had some land and everything else. And that's what occupied all my time. And then as I came into, graduating high school and all that, and doing well at some races, Cannondale threw me a bone, and I got on their developmental team called Team Headshock.
I want to ask you about something there. Something I read today as I was doing a little bit of research on trying to find a lot of the background to talk to you about. I heard an interesting story about how you were in high school and a Cannondale rep, a graphic designer, came in and gave a presentation, and then you later ran into that rep at a race that you did. Is that the correct story?
So we had career day at our school, and Dave Cody was down in the tech area talking about bikes, and he worked for Cannondale, and he was a really nice guy, and of course a biker also. And me and my buddy ended up kind of rapping with him for a while, and then I think we were like, hey, we'll catch you at Mount Snow this year. Definitely see you over there. Great. See you, have a good one. So
before you tell me Mount Snow story, I want to tell you something. Dave Cody is an old friend of mine from way back. So I used to ride on this a BMX team for S&W called the Bizarre Maneuvers Freestyle Team. And Dave did the painting on the ramp. He did these incredible graphics on the ramp. And I remember when Dave applied to Cannondale, they had put out some public job offering that they were looking for a graphic designer. And he was pretty young, but he had wicked talent. And he did his resume. He went to Timmy's shop at S&W, got an old bike box, opened it up, and wrote his entire resume on the inside of the bike box, taped it up, and sent it to Cannondale and got the job. And I just couldn't believe that was the person that you had met from Cannondale, because he's such a good dude.
He's such a good dude, and he did tell us that story and how to set yourself apart from the rest and to be creative in every aspect, even if you're sending a letter of,
so cool.
Whatever. And he was such a good guy. I ended up seeing him out at Mount Snow. So the funny part about Mount Snow was that expert slalom was full, and there's pro and am slalom. So I signed up for am, like expert or whatever, full. I left the registration going, I totally screwed up. I should have pre-registered. Went back in and signed up for pro, qualified 10th. And David Cody was like, dude, I like you.
Awesome.
Let me help you with your resume so that we can get on there. So now the behind the scenes of that was Cannondale wasn't my thing. I wanted to be on Spooky Cycles. So I was like, all right, Dave helped me out with that resume. And I knew the guys at Spooky. So I was like, I'll just print out 2 of these and mail one to Spooky, and guys at Spooky throw it right in the trash because they buy all their mail in the trash. You know what I mean? Because those guys did whatever they wanted to do. And anyway, so Cannondale picked me up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with this. And I cannot believe I made that right choice.
How old were you at that point when they first picked you up?
18.
Awesome.
Yep. And then when I was 19, they sent me a note in the mail saying, hey, we want to pay you $9,600 and continue on this journey with us. And my mom read me, and it was a mailed letter. And at that point, like that was when I was 19. And I'm like, whoa, looks like I'm racing. So I didn't look back after that. That was, ever since I was 19, I've been getting paid to ride my bike.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, how'd you make the transition from racer to freestyler, and to doing some pretty crazy stuff?
So I always loved jumping, and I had a big background in trials and everything else. So I had this mishmash of skills, and racing was just one part of it. And when the race was over, the riding wasn't over. I just went and did something else. So me and Kyle Ebbett would jump off of everything, and then before we knew it, we were getting more recognized for our antics off the track than on. So
and that led. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And that's when I caught my stride, because racing was really fun, but when you graduate from your local series that you're scolding it and you go on the national series, you kiss the podium goodbye. I'm talking top 20 if I'm lucky. And in slalom, yeah, I did all right. I never got on a pro podium in slalom. I wish, but I would get to the round of 8, which is pretty good. But those guys were so fast, and it was Lopes in his day. And I even had been buddies with Missy Giovi and
I remember Missy.
And just all sorts of people from back in the day. Phil Tinsman, I did a lot of traveling with him, and anyway, just some of the best times ever. But when I shifted off of pro racing into free ride, at the time there was different events scattered all over the place. I went to the first Joyride. I showed up on a hardtail, and I should have been on a downhill bike. I had no clue what I was going to. And that's how it worked. And then a lot of events were popping up in Europe, and I'd travel to those, and those were all with Bear Claw and Zinc and Straight and Cam McCall, Randy Spangler, even Schley, and those guys were out there. And we were all super tight buddies, all competing around the world all summer. It was just the best and the most fun. And yeah, we had travel budgets and everything else. And that was, going from racing to something that was pretty rigid to free ride, which is good time the whole time. And you could really express yourself on the course. It wasn't, you either win or you lose in racing. And in free ride, I felt like everybody could win, because you'd come down with your best run. Hey, I got 4th place, but dude, did you just see what I pulled off? Yeah. And that was kind of the feeling.
And so then you made the transition to doing a lot of filming, and this is really where you really gained a lot of notoriety. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Don Hampton was one of the first real guys that I gravitated to, and we worked together and shot the whole Chain Reaction series, 10 of them. So, and then we kept going from there too. And I did all my own stuff too. But I guess I really hit the big time when I was in New World Disorder. And that's where most people from all over the world know me from, because that video series was huge. It was sold all over the place. And if you were a biker in that time, you had that, and that was your Bible, and that was what was happening. And I knew that the second I got the thumbs up, and Jeff Lanowski, such a good dude. He's like, dude, come with me and ride and get, nudge in, and those guys were all pumped for me to be on there, but that was kind of my invitation. And then from there, I was in the free ride bubble, and those guys are so cool. The free ride entertainment guys, all Canadians, and they did it better and bigger than anyone else. And we had premieres in Las Vegas, and total like rock star for a day or two, out there at those big bike, trade shows. And the whole industry was there, and they'd show up and watch the movie and go, dude, you're the guy. Awesome. So, it was great coming from a race team, had that background, and then going to free ride. I had this background, and then the whole industry. And everything just slowly started, coming together, where I would start figuring out the fact that this is a business, although it is riding, but hey, we got to sell entertainment, and entertainment doesn't always need to be, I'm going to jump off of that cliff because it's even bigger. Entertainment for me was like entertainment. Like if I skid sideways before I do a drop, or if I crash into a guitar solo, it's sick. And that's like what people would resonate with or remember out of the whole. I remember this one guy comes up to me and he goes, dude, your crash into the guitar slide was the best thing ever. Like, that's the only thing I remember of the video last night. And I was like,
were you surprised at that?
Yeah, it was, because I wasn't because I knew it would be entertaining and funny, but it just changes up the monotonous, hucks and land or whatever, like
something
that.
A little bit different.
Yeah, and it was not, and then it was, and then you'd start watching like CKY videos, and I don't know if you ever got to watch any of those. Those are like the videos like before Jackass, but they were like the skate videos that Pam Margera did and stuff like that. And then I started watching stuff like that, and then when I did my videos, I was like, dude, I'm just gonna go ham and film it all, and then we'll put a video together. So I love that stuff.
This is the thing is it's a predecessor to like today, where people are social media influencers. You seem to kind of grasp early on that you knew how to resonate with the audience. We didn't have the tools that we have now. You had to do it in film. And nowadays people want to make their entire career out of, sort of making that sort of impact, and anyone can do it on their own with a GoPro and things like that. It's such a different world. I think that set the stage for people wanting to have the kind of audience and fame and connection with a big community that you got out of doing those films. And it's sort of morphed now into something a little bit different. And it's interesting to see how long you've been at it, but you're continuing to change with the media, whatever's the current media and the methodology to do that. So how old were you when those films were really starting to hit, where you were doing all of this traveling? I mean, how old were you?
It was in my 20s, and because I have a heart out. When I was 28, I broke my back.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that.
That's my heart out. But so yeah, from 2003 was the last year I raced professional downhill. And 2004, I got on with Red Bull. Even though while I was racing pro downhill, I was doing the Boston Bike Battle, like a Red Bull event. I was doing some free ride contests. So I knew that they were happening, and I was kind of like, the two worlds blended. But 2004, I was done. And I got a Red Bull helmet. So I was like, hey, I'm going straight to all the free ride events and seeing where this goes, because it's what I'm better at than racing. Because I'm, at racing, I'm the 20th best guy. Like in this one, I feel like I'm in the top 10.
That must have been
definitely my path.
To get that Red Bull helmet, the real McCoy, it must have been amazing. I mean, nowadays that is so iconic. And even
in my day, I call up Lanowski and I go, well, Red Bull's offered me a spot. And Lanowski's like, man, that's a lot of real estate to give up. He's like, my helmet is full of stickers and each one of those are a little paycheck. So all those little stickers add up. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. And then you're not, dude, the sticker on your helmet was like really, really worth something. And you could fill it up with chain lube sponsors and bike tires and sock sponsor and whatever. Just keep slapping them on there. It didn't matter. So to give it all up for one, it was tough. At the same time, I was like, I think I'm just going for it. And dude, when I signed on with those guys, the Free Ride Entertainment guys and everything else were like, well, get ready, get your helmet all painted up, because we're going to Australia to drive from the West Coast to the East Coast, from Perth to Adelaide, and on a 3-week trip in a bus. And we're going to ride everything across the Nullarbor in Australia. So that was like my introduction to Red Bull, and it was a no-brainer after that. Like I got swept away.
Yeah. Well, in a sport like what you do, and for people that aren't into mountain biking, don't have any idea, you really need to look up some videos that Aaron's done to see the kind of crazy shit that he's done. Backflips in loops that don't have a top of the loop. I mean, just a lot of really cool stuff. And you're so fucking stylish, dude. I mean, that's it. It shows, it's like people like to watch you because you don't necessarily have to go the biggest to be super stylish. The stuff that really resonates with other riders. And when you do this for a profession day in and day out, I imagine your body's getting banged up all the time. Tell me about some injuries, obviously leading up to the big one. I mean,
yeah,
you have a lot. I mean, you're always trying new stuff and you're innovating and you're always what's the word I'm looking for? Very creative, really creative on the bike. And that, I'm sure most of those tricks, you got to crash a bunch of times before you can pull them off.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I would always crash a bunch of times before I pulled them off. That's why I didn't go as big as Zinc, because I was like, if I crash, I'm not going to be able to do that again. But yeah, I mean, injuries can pile up, or you can scoot by them somehow miraculously. It's kind of the luck of the draw in a lot of ways. But I broke over 25 bones in my 20s. Yeah, so from all the bones in my foot from just jumping off of this thing at a skate park at Kevin Robinson skate park in Rhode Island, and broke all the bones in my foot, to I broke my sternum, ribs, my clavicle, my scapula, dislocated my elbow like the wrong way, and
ouch.
And my back, my femur, like all sorts of stuff. So as I was lying, in the snow with my broken femur, going, what the heck is going on? And then immediately the next year, in Newcastle, England, I crash in an event and break my back. And as, I hit the ground and everything else, my legs shut right off. So I did not know that they'd ever come back. I just figured I was screwed. I instantly knew I was in a big world of hurt, and I didn't know what to think. I was overwhelmed, and by the time I got in the hospital, I was in a gurney and through the ambulance and then get to the hospital. I started being able to like move my feet because they were like strapped down on, and I was all like strapped down to the bed, and and then that was just as overwhelming because I was like, I can't stop moving my feet because I couldn't, and now I'm strapped down to the gurney, and I can only just move my ankles a little bit. And anyway, it was just super heavy, and paralysis it's a part of you dying. It's the bottom half of you dying. It feels like you're 2 feet in the grave. It feels like it's never going to come back, and you're detached from it, and you're looking at your legs, but they're not. There's nothing there, and it's unlike anything you can even describe because, it's just messed up. So anyway, I feel for everybody that hasn't made it out. I can't believe I got lucky enough, but I guess basically the way that I crashed, I landed on my butt from like 10 feet up and smushed my spine like straight down, and it kind of like broke, like if you smushed a donut on the table. Ugh. Like it just broke all the way around, and then it kind of boom, like kind of dinged my cord, but no shearing. So the shear is what really like can sever your cord or tweak it or whatever. And mine was just kind of like a ding. So like anyway, they packed bone all around that L1 vertebrae and then gave me this.
Oh, you have it still. Of course. Oh man.
And this goes in my T12, my L1's here, and then L2. Huge screws.
All right, so I got to ask you something. I mean,
this is what they pulled out of my back 7 years later.
You had that for 7 years in your back.
Yeah, and I could feel it every second of every day. I had chronic back pain, and it just sucked. And when I had the opportunity, so this is another crazy story, is Red Bull has a neurosurgeon in Santa Monica, California, that does work with Red Bull athletes to help keep them going. And it's an amazing place. It's called DISC, DISC. And those guys they do some amazing stuff. They can, and they can take this little ship out of the bottle kind of a thing and take them out of these little holes in my back and get all this hardware out. And this thing's this has got bolts on it, Allen heads, all these pieces, and when you touch the ends of them, they're all snipped off by snips. They're not clean factory ends. They're like, they put this in you, and then they snip off the top of the screws, and then they slide the rods in and all that, and then they snip off the sides and tighten all the little bolts, and then sew you up with staples. And this is what holds your spine so that it's stable, so that the bone that they put around that whole area will take. And now that's what's happening, is I've got the 3 vertebrae that are fused in my back with bone. And now the hardware is out.
So what immediately comes to mind, I talk to a lot of people that have incredible mental ability, ultra runners. I had on the podcast a friend of mine who's run 500 miles and done a Deca Ironman. And we talk about mental strength and mental ability and ability to deal with pain and the ability to stay present. And like, first of all, the fact that you're still doing it after that, I'd like to get into, but how'd you keep your shit together outside of the fact that you didn't have a choice? I mean, did you do any, tell me a little bit about the mental struggle that goes with that, like after that's implanted and then you start the rehabilitation process?
So I think that competing and racing and competing, it's the analogy for me is being a fighter and being in the ring and going, I'm not afraid, intimidated of any of these guys. I'm going to rip anyone's head off that gets near me. I got this. I'm going to win. I don't like anybody when I'm competing. And then after I'm done, like everybody gets. It's not a problem, but I need to see red when I'm competing. So when this happens, now I'm what is it? Is it what's that one? Is it Braveheart where they stick the guy? Anyway, now I'm fighting with a knife hanging out of my back, right there. Ugh, every time I really strain, every time I really strain or anything like that, I'm getting an extra, I'm getting a charge in my back, and it's I don't have the power, I don't have the confidence. If I crash, what's going to happen to my back again? Are my legs going to shut off? If I like fall backwards, and am I going to break my back again? And then I'm totally it. And excuse me.
Did you think about hanging it up at that point? I mean, because that's what most people would do.
Definitely. And I didn't know if my hand would be forced to do that or if I was just going to do that anyway. So yeah, of course the best way to become a pro anything is to not have a backup plan. That way you got to just keep
full
going.
Commitment.
So I was like, should I go back to working on bikes or washing dishes like I was, or roofing before I was, doing any of this? Maybe I'm going to try to figure out where I'm best at, what I can do to help, what I can do to work. Plus I've got all these connections. I've got, now at this point, I've been in the business for 10 years and I know everybody I know is from biking. So I'm going to stay there somehow. I'm going to do something. So at one point, GoPro starts really coming up. And in 2007, I met Nick Woodman in a 10x10 tent at Sea Otter before I left for this event and crashed and broke my back. And I actually had a GoPro on my head, but it was the original one. It had dead batteries, just didn't catch the moment or anything like that. So, but when I crashed. But anyway, GoPro started coming up a little bit more and coming up a little more. And I started, by the time the 4 came out, like GoPro was so huge. We were doing trips to New Zealand with Kelly McGarry or Squamish with Tippy, or they paid me to go to Peru and Mexico and bring back footage. And so I was like, I'll adventure travel. I know how to travel. I know how to get everywhere. I know how to make it happen. And bring back the goods and tell a story and make sure you've got all the shots that can do that also. So
you're sort of transitioning into filmmaker as well as rider at this point now. Now you're starting to make content, not necessarily just about yourself, but the whole adventure and bringing people along with you on these big adventures.
Yeah. And making content for GoPro. I still wasn't like, I want to do a YouTube channel or, pump up my Facebook or even Instagram or whatever. It was like all about GoPro in Red Bull. And the camera just keeps getting better and the opportunities keep getting better. The company's changed a ton, but the core guys there are still just like as passionate as ever. And it's just been an amazing company to be with. Such an amazing ride, and met so many people and so many opportunities just being on GoPro. But I think that was the right move at the right time, because now events are still going on and everything else, but now content is becoming a little bit more apparent that's like what, that's what's going to be driving things. And then as I kind of evolved into that, it was like doing product videos for my sponsors or whatever they need, because, hey, listen, I'm a high profile rider that's not competing and I don't have a World Cup schedule. What do you need? And a lot of companies need testing and product feedback and all that, and that's super important, and all the way up into the content, like I said. So
this start to feel more like a job now, like more, I mean, you're still doing what you love, and you've been lucky enough that you've been able to heal up from this thing, and maybe I'm reading into this a little bit, but maybe not having quite as much pressure to perform at such a high level where you can actually now add this other element of adventure into it and continue on in the industry doing the things that you love. It sounds like this is when things start to transition a little bit more into, this is sort of a career now. Well, not just a professional career, but a job as well.
Yeah. So I touched on it like for a minute earlier. In 2007, broke my back. In 2008, I got a kid. So now I got a kid, and I'm 30. So, I kind of do want a job in a way too.
Yeah, I mean that's what, I've done a lot of sports, never been super high level, but if I've come up to the point where it becomes like something you're doing all the time. And one of the things that I found in a trend that it gets to the point where it starts to not be fun. Now, you don't seem to have run into that, but it's like I got into snowboarding when snowboarding just started to get popular, and I started to compete, and I did slalom, and I did GS, and I did half pipe, and I did, slope style. And then it gets to a point where you're bringing three snowboards and 2 different sets of boots and a skin suit and your freestyle clothes. And, you got to travel, and it started to feel like a chore. And then you get on the other side of that where you stop competing and you start having fun again. It feels like when you first started, where you just, that stoke of just doing it without worrying about being judged for what you do. And it seems to me that most of the sports that I've done, as I've done a lot of them, it always follows that cycle. And I always am curious about people who are in your position where you've done essentially the same thing for so long, and you've managed to morph it into something that continues to seem to be a lot of fun for you, as well as your career. And I wonder if it ever gets to the point where it starts to feel like a chore, feel like a job, and how you think about the future. I mean, I know that's not what any sponsors want to hear, but it's the reality as we get older. Like when you see a kid in the new Gymkhana video, a 9-year-old doing a double backflip 30 feet up, you go, Jesus Christ, where is this going? How do I stay relevant and involved in the sport? I mean,
I've stopped. It took a few years to let that feeling of like, you don't have to keep up with everybody else. You don't have to do that new trick after I broke my back, because it just wasn't happening for me. And, looking into what it is, I think that, it's a job. There's going to be stresses with it. Traveling over 200 days a year is a lot of fun, and a lot.
We had a hell of a good time in Peru, I tell you that.
I'm like sleeping on planes. I can do it. It sucks, especially with rods in your back. Oh God, it just sucks. But the people, and then the fact is, when you're really on your bike, man, it doesn't even matter after that. And, and when you got kids, you do need a job at the same time. And riding your bike is a chore, especially when most of the time you ride your bike is in 100-foot increments in front of a camera, and then hike back up and do it again. But at the same time, I could be roofing in the winter,
Yep.
So
it's all relevant.
Yeah, you just take the good with the bad. The slams are the worst part, because it changes your entire life for the duration of the injury.
Yeah.
But
how old do you now, Aaron?
What's that?
How old are you now?
42.
All right. I don't. Do you find fear starts to creep in, especially with all of this as you've been through? Like you start to look at some stuff and go, fuck, like that jump's pretty big. You don't seem to have a lot of that. You're still doing videos that I watch and I go, holy cow.
Yeah. So it's easier for me to let go of some things and go, yep, I'm just not going to do it. And then there's other things where it might look like it's a crazy jump to most people, but to me, I've jumped a million crazy jumps in my life, and I'm very good at timing. Mm-hmm. So if I think I have the timing on it, great. But if I'm like, I don't know if I have the strength to pull that landing off, then I won't do it, or something like that. But it's easier to let things go. At one point, I would be snowboarding and there'd be the big jump at the park, and I'd be like, I have to hit it. And I'm not even a snowboarder. I don't even care about snowboarding. But then, you know, and then there's a huge rail and you're like, I got to try it. I got to overcome it. Yeah. So it's like one of those things to build your powers. Like the more you overcome, the stronger you get, the more like kills you get, the stronger you get, kind of a thing. And that's how I felt for a long time, you know, from my teens into my 20s.
And it is relevant that no matter how big the jump is, whether it's big or small, if you do something that is fearful and you overcome it, it's an awesome feeling no matter how big it is and what it is. And keeping that ability to push yourself it's gotta be a driving force that keeps you going.
It is. And then crashing and surviving and, you know, it makes it so. I remember Cam Zink rode a motorcycle off of the cannon at Highland, and it was like a nasty motorcycle move. Like he rode an old late models, a 78 Kawasaki 350, like a 2-stroke 350 street bike, and up the cannon at Highland and off into the landing. And we're like, oh, well, I don't know if the bike's gonna take it. I don't know if you can take it. That bike's going to feel heavy. Don't over jump it. Definitely don't case. Like there's no suspension on it. You could crash real bad. And he's like, I could crash off of way crazier stuff than this. I'm not even sweating it. And that's kind of your mentality. Is like, I've survived so many brawls. I'll fight this guy. Whatever. It's kind of like that.
Huh. Well, yeah, I was thinking, nowadays, like if and it's sort of relevant with your son, but what would you tell someone who wants to do what you do now, who wants to film and do big jumps and be a star in this sport, in this blood sport? I mean, essentially in this really difficult sport that when you case it, you could get really hurt.
Yeah, I know, but that's the fun part, is like escaping the barrel. Like you're getting barreled, and then you spit back out and you're like, oh, I almost got eaten by this huge wave. It's the same thing. So what would I say to somebody who's up and coming? I mean, it's either in your blood and you can't help it, or you're gonna just try and it's never gonna work, I think. I think if you want to jump into something half-assly, it could turn into something. But like I said, if you go into something without, you know, like I don't have any place to live. I gotta stay here, or I've got nowhere else to go. I want to be a biker. This is all I know, and this is me, and that's what I want to do. And I think that if you're getting traction, then you just keep going on that path. And I guess I'm fortunate enough to have had traction the entire time to kind of keep that going. I don't know, but I mean, if somebody wants to get into a sport on any level nowadays, it just looks like, to me, you have to absolutely be yourself, because people are either going to like you or hate you. But either way, if you're exactly authentic to yourself and what you're doing, then at least you can deal with it. I think that trying to force anybody into racing professional, like, I mean, you've got to eat, sleep, and breathe that. And you can't do that unless it's what you're wired to do. So
it's anything. It's just like starting a business or anything. It just sounds like you just need to full commitment. It sounds very similar, and you really have to be true to yourself. And I think other people resonate and are attracted to genuineness, and if you're going to be yourself and do your own tricks and have confidence in that and commit fully, then that will resonate with people, and that probably a good path to move forward. And like you said, you're either going to gain traction or you're not.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes in whatever the arena that you're in, it's it could be a stepping stone to something else. Like I ended up not being the best racer, but it got me into free ride.
Yeah.
And then, man, free ride was sick, but it destroyed me after 5-6 years. So, and I slid into more of that adventure travel role. And nowadays, check it out, like this. With COVID and everything else, if I was riding for Pivot last year, I would have been in a world of hurt, because Pivot really needed me to do product videos and come to Phoenix, Arizona all the time and go to all the bike festivals. And none of that would have happened this year.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I just ended up kind of pivoting off of Pivot to Commensal, because the Commensal guys were like, man, we really need a guy like you on the East Coast that knows everybody, that can just share the stoke of the bikes. And I'm like,
and everybody's riding the bikes. Like, so you've done a couple of things. You built a compound. You've built a, the Chase compound. It's sort of like mini Pastrana land, and
it's getting there.
You keep adding stuff to it, but so many of my friends are riding the bikes because they gave you a fleet, and especially the e-bikes. And, I think 3 or 4 years ago, it had a lot of bad rap. Nowadays, everybody my age is like, damn, you can rip up the mountain and down the mountain too. So I think it's a smart move to let you, plus people that don't know, you live 15 minutes from the mountain bike mecca of the United States, Highland Mountain Bike Park.
Can't believe that.
That's amazing story.
That little ski resort that I skied at in high school, and I'm under protest. It was the worst. Highland's a pretty mellow ski hill, and to ski down, and I mean, it's mellow. It's a mellow little mom and pop spot. But
they used to do a downhill every year, and that ski downhill or snowboard downhill, and the top to bottom of the mountain had 4 gates. It was literally just one straight run. It was a wicked fun event too. It was super fun.
You skied there?
Oh yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, I had a friend that rode for Burton, and Burton had made a few custom, very long snowboards back in the Burton Safari days. So I borrowed my friend Noah Brandon's Safari 207. And I raced that, and they had a radar gun, and I believe I hit 70 or 71 miles an hour in soft boots on that 207, and you couldn't even turn it until you went about 30, because it was just, I'm 5'7". It was way over the top of my head, but it was a crazy event. It was super fun, and then the mountain went away, and then all of a sudden people started riding there, and it was just like, it just got bigger and bigger, and now it's an amazing place.
It's amazing. Highland's my favorite spot. And growing up right here in Belmont, New Hampshire, and now moving back here after being gone for, I don't know, 12, 15 years or whatever. Feels good to be back home and have Highland be my home mountain. I always just had such a connection with it from my past, and seeing it grow, especially this year, even bigger than ever. I mean, with this COVID year, it's so much has changed, but so many people discovered riding this year. And
that's the silver lining out of this pandemic. Who would have thought in March that basically any industry that has anything to do with being outside would go crazy? I mean, I sell motorcycles. We had a very strong year. You can't find a bicycle. They're all sold out. You can't find a boat. You can't find anything to do with being outside. And of course, as an outdoorsman, that's a big silver lining in the middle of a very terrible, a terrible crisis that we're in. But I'm hoping maybe that, when this is over and we come out of it, maybe we'll have a lot more people that have a deeper appreciation of the outdoors, of being outside, whether it's riding a bike or just walking in the woods. And I think that's a really good thing. And I think, obviously, to see a place like Highlands continue to go nuts, even amongst this time period, is amazing.
It's gonna for sure, and travel is gonna be even bigger. And you know, in 2019, I believed that travel was where it was at, where people would want to spend their money because there's only so many material items you want, and experiences are what really fill you. So.
Well, they were talking about the experience economy all the time back then, you know, and that's the way things were shifting. You don't want to buy stuff. You want to have an adventure.
Yeah. So, and we had an adventure. Nate and I went on a big bike ride in Peru for an entire week, and we ride through the sacred valley of the Incas, and you get to
and we did an amazing race too.
Oh man! And you get
Inca Avalanche.
Yeah, the Inca Avalanche is amazing. 200 guys, 200 people all at the top. There's even kids that start in the back row and everything else, all piling down that hill.
Going from 14,600 down to 9,000 feet in one, wasn't it? It was over 14,000 feet. The top of that race.
Yep. It's 14 and change. Yeah, down to 9, and it's two different. I mean, you're at the top. It could be snowing or sleeting or raining, or so there's some weather up there because your head's in the clouds, and then at the bottom it's warm. You know, there's kids washing your bikes off in that little stream, like in, you know, shorts and a t-shirt. So
that was probably the best trip of my life. You got dark.
Yeah, I think my daughter just shut that off. I was trying to get her to come over and say hi. That was the best trip of your life?
That was the coolest adventure from not just the riding, but to see Machu Picchu and to meet the people, the down to earth. I can't say enough about that trip. I mean, I was really looking forward to either going back or going on another adventure and doing something like that, because that's the group of people. You know, you spend a week with somebody doing an event like that, and you feel like these people are going to be friends for the rest of your life. And we had just the time of our lives. We got to forget about regular life and just see some amazing stuff and ride some incredible riding. It was the most incredible.
An incredible history of that whole place. It's an adventure driving up the mountain, looking out the window. Yeah. You're not in Whistler going, "Ooh, this place looks sick to shred." You're like in Peru going, "This place is mental to shred." I mean, it's mental. Yeah. You ride down through ruins, down old Inca roads, through livestock, people's backyards, through no man's lands, through places that have had such rich in history. All that rock work that you look at, you're like baffled by
hard to even comprehend when you look at it. And the older stuff is even more hard to believe than the newer stuff, the older rock.
That Mummy Trail?
Yeah, all of the trails. How about the trail that I fell off the cliff on? That was great.
Wow. I mean, even the trail right above town that we'd go buzz up, there's that little market, a couple people selling some stuff up there, and you buy like a little keychain or a hat or something that somebody knitted. And
it also makes you really appreciate how good you have it in the States, because you can't drink the water. The conditions are not sanitary. And you learn to live. But I mean, you learn to understand that what you take for granted here in the United States, a lot of this world doesn't have. And it's good to be exposed to that.
So big eye opener for me is I went to Cuba a few years ago. And that was like, whoa, because Cuba has stores with nothing in them. And they have buildings with nothing in them. There's nothing, they don't have anything. They don't have warehouses and trucks that bring stuff all over the place.
Yeah. So no distribution of anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there is, there's a line for the store.
Really makes you appreciate the United States, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I walked, on the way back, going through the airport and, a gas station or whatever. And those guys in Cuba can't really technically leave and go check it out anyway. Mm. And it's a stone's throw from Florida and the Keys, and it's just a whole different world, but which is what makes it so amazing too. And I felt really safe there. the people there were exceptional. And the government is under the way that it works down there is if you're a tourist coming down and spending money and everything else, they love you. You're the only thing that's bringing anything into that place. So you go in there and buy some trinkets and take a ride in an old car and stay at a hotel and go to a restaurant. They love you. But you can also get thrown in jail forever for no reason at all. But they're not going to really necessarily do that to you. But the other thing is, you could say, hey, that guy over there robbed me last night. And they would just take him and toss him in the tank, and that would be it. And a jail in Cuba probably doesn't have food and water and stuff like that. It's just some cage. So it's, there's like this balance, but I definitely didn't feel like I was in any harm or anything like that. But the adventure I felt it was very safe. And I was in Havana, and then I went all the way to the other side of the island, which is an hour flight to Holguin, and rode the tallest mountain in Peru, in Cuba, which is almost 6,000 feet tall. It's called Pico Turquino, and it's so you're hiking 6,000 feet. And the mountains there are super steep and everything else. But by the time we get down and get back and everything else, and I got a couple bars that I still have from my whole 10 days in Cuba, and I'm like, man, I just need a sandwich. Like there you can't find it. I ended up getting some street meat in this little town on the side of the road, but you're not just like, let's go to a restaurant and kill it. Man, that was a huge overnight ride. I'm starving.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing to travel around and see these places. It definitely opens your eyes to what you have.
You're going to do more travel, more group events and things like this once we get through this COVID thing? Yeah, hopefully, right? You can go back. How many times have you been to Peru? That's a common one for you, right? You've been a bunch, right?
Yeah. Maybe between 7 and 10-ish.
Yeah.
A bunch. It's so good. The riding is a 10. The adventure's a 10. The people are a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, hard to beat.
It's a slam dunk every time. If you went back, you'd be like, the economy and everything else, it's affordable.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I'm glad I got a chance. I'm glad I got the invite. It was awesome.
It's so far away too, huh?
13-hour plane flight it's a while, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you don't have all night to chit chat about travel and stuff. I appreciate you coming on. I hope the conditions change soon, that you can continue to travel and continue to film and have these adventures, and you don't have to go back to roofing anytime soon.
No, that ain't happening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, by the time that comes around, your compound is going to have so many ramps and jumps and everything that you can just stay there and people come there.
Dude, you got to come over and ride your bike. That electric motor that you have. Yeah. Over here. That'd be a lot of fun too.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Anytime. Well, hey man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time and talk with me. It's really good seeing you again.
Yeah.
Good seeing you healthy, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll ride together.
Hey, and here's to good times again, Nate. Let's do this.
Cheers, man.
All right.
Yeah. Appreciate it, brother. Have a good one.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of fun with you in Peru and again tonight. And look forward to the next time, Nate.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Cheers, bro.